From the William B. Travis Building in Austin, Texas, we're keeping Texas energy on track. Here's your host, Bryce Doobie.
Welcome to Texas Energy on Track, the official podcast of the Railroad Commission of Texas. I am your host, Bryce Doobie, joined by my co-host and producer, the one who really makes this whole show come together, Nick Cranock. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I'm glad you didn't sir me today. That always freaks me out and throws me off from what I'm going to say.
Well, it's a little bit of respect because you really do make this whole show happen. We've talked about it before a couple times, not to get all sappy, but as the producer, you really are doing a lot of the prep work. I'm just kind of here to ask some questions, so I appreciate all that you do, sir.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually excited about this one because this one I'm like, okay, I actually know something about this because I've been to several Brownfield sites. So I'm like, all right, I'm extra amped up for this one.
Yeah, you just kind of jumped ahead on it a little bit, which is, really, this is the thing. The energy for this one, I think since I first met you, you've always kind of talked about this as being like a really cool one. So we are beyond thrilled today to be joined by Dr. Andrea Pinon. You've got a long title. I will let you introduce yourself really quick.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. I do have a very long title. I am the Railroad Commission of Texas team lead for the Brownfields Response Program and the Voluntary Cleanup Program. So try fitting all of that into a nice business card.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. And to be very clear, as we jump into this episode, I'm going to be very intentional to not trip over it and say it the wrong thing. It is not Brownfields plural, not Brownfield.
It is Brownfields Response Program. Yes. Thank you so much for really isolating that particular specificity about the title. Brownfields Response Program. That gave me a little bit of pause when I first came into this position, which was about 2 years ago.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you coming in from? You said you've been here 2 years. What's your background?
So yes, I've been here for 2 years. Been a very exciting and wonderful experience for me. I really don't have a very conventional oil and gas background. I was in academia for about 10 years. There I studied geomorphology, specifically zoogeomorphology. So that's also a mouthful. So that's the study of large animals and their impact on the landscape, formation and decay. I spent a lot of time in Africa researching large animal zoogeomorphology in Tanzania, looking at their impact in South Africa. And then I was at Texas State and I taught geomorphology lab, physical geomorphology laboratories. I also dived into cultural geography, and then I had the wonderful opportunity of going abroad and co-teaching with a wonderful professor in Norway and Iceland, and there we did regional geomorphology of that particular area. And then here in Texas, I spent a lot of time at various nonprofits that were really focused on water protection, conservation, habitat protection. So overall, I bring a lot of my strong environmental science skills into the commission, my role here, and also to kind of dive a little bit into my geospatial data analysis applications and environmental science. So even though I don't have a very strong oil and gas background, I still have and bring a lot of knowledge to what I do.
Oh, wow. That was a lot. That was really cool. I think after we end this episode, I'm going to pick your brain on a couple things because that's really, really interesting. For the listeners who really don't know, when we're talking Brownfields and the Brownfields Response Program, why is that such an important thing? First of all, what is it, but why is it important?
So the Brownfields Response Program, or sometimes I refer to it as the BRP, was created in 2002 when the commission was awarded brownfield grant funding through the Environmental Protection Agency, particularly the Small Business Liability Relief and Brownfields Revitalization Action Section 128A. The program was created as an additional means to incentivize the remediation of properties in Texas contaminated by historical oil and gas related activities. And what's really special about the program, it provides free environmental site assessments and limited cleanups at brownfield sites for qualified entities in order to really protect the environment, create jobs, revitalize communities through increasing property values and tax revenue. So we go up there, we assess and remediate a property, and then it's able to be redeveloped for some community-focused project.
So just, I think, sort of a entry-level question here, because I know there's a sort of a legal term to it. What is a brownfield?
So a brownfield has been formally defined by the EPA. They define it as a real property where the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. So when it comes to the Railroad Commission, we kind of take that really broad definition and kind of narrow it down to our jurisdictional oversight. So any site here in the state that has been contaminated by historical oil and gas activity and then has been abandoned, leaving that contamination in place. So these sites are all over the country. There are, tons, hundreds, if not, but in Texas specifically, we focus on those under our jurisdictional oversight.
And just as I'm putting all the pieces together and things, this is tied to our broader site remediation as well, correct?
Correct. Yes. So the Brownfields Response Program is one out of 4 cleanup programs within site remediation section. So each of those cleanup programs are kind of focused on one particular aspect. So we have our operator cleanup program that, has our operators go in there and be responsible for any contamination they caused. Our voluntary cleanup program, these are abandoned sites, but someone has come in and says, I'm going to be responsible for that cleanup. Our state managed cleanup program, that one is for sites that have been abandoned. There's really the responsible party is unable to clean up the site, so we'll use our oil and gas reserve funds to clean up and remediate a site. And the Brownfield Response Program is particularly special too. I mean, those are abandoned as well, but we're using EPA federal grant funds to go in there and clean up and remediate and assess. And then particularly special is that is really community focused. So we're really focusing on what Texas communities need.
And how are these? I think back to the day you hear certain words thrown around. How is this different from like a Superfund site or other contaminated location?
So that is a really great question, and one that we do get often. So they can sound very similar because you're thinking overall the word contamination. There's some type of pollutant there that's prohibiting the redevelopment or reuse. Both, I would like to say, are all over the country, brownfields and Superfunds. Superfunds particularly are really large-scale, heavily contaminated properties or areas with a lot of hazardous waste. You might think of landfills, for example. That regulatory authority goes with the Environmental Protection Agency, so they kind of oversee those sites. Here in Texas, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or TCEQ, do work with the EPA to oversee these sites. But when we're talking about brownfields, particularly with the Railroad Commission in Texas, kind of just going back to our jurisdictional oversight, oil and gas, historical activity, the site has been abandoned. So that is kind of the difference. The type of contaminant has to be an oil and gas related contaminant, waste contaminant, and a Superfund site is it's a other type of very hazardous waste, like a landfill, for example.
Why is it important to really return these properties to a good, safe, productive use?
So there are quite a few brownfield sites in the state. You think about this is land that has a lot of potential. We have, needs for housing. We have needs for green spaces. Maybe some communities need certain type of facility services or things like that. So these sites offer incredible potential. If there is some type of funding source, that would be the commission and through our program, that's able to go in there and say, we just kind of roll up our sleeves, put a little assessment and remediation elbow grease into that, and then be able to bring that site up to standards that are protective of human health and the environment, and then that site could be reused. So this site could increase tax revenue for the particular community, or just offer, a nice green space to take a walk in.
And I know I'm going to pivot over, put Nick on the hot seat for a second here, because I have not had a chance to see one of these yet, but I know you've gone out and shot some video and taken pictures at some of these. From your perspective, having seen the end product, what's that like?
It was one of my first things, even within a month when I started working the Railroad Commission. One of our first projects was going down to Galveston and looking at the Artist Boat Preserve, going down there and just kind of seeing the scope. From what I saw, it was pretty neat, because if you think about it, it was an abandoned oil site. There's a well. Our team started it, I think, 2013 or shortly thereafter. They got the well taken care of, and we're able to clean up the site. And actually, the site's used now. It's 1,400 acres, and there's a big park preserve. There's a little inlet that comes in with water. When we were there were all kinds of water birds, which was really cool to see. There's a swimming pool. There was a summer camp going on when we were there. They had activities for kids. So, it's right there on Galveston Island. It's open to the public, anyone nearby. They can have, camp, send your kids there, learn a lot, go on hikes. I want to say they had weddings there too, because there was a whole pavilion, like a whole area. It was really neat. It's huge, and it's a really beautiful area, and they're all over. I mean, Andrews Bird Park, Turtle Bayou is down along the coast as well. So there's a bunch of cool ones. Also, for a plug, they're all on our website, rrc.texas.gov. You can check it out yourself.
How do we decide what sites to prioritize, and sort of what does that sort of initial phase look like as far as assessment and start and clean up and all of that? What's sort of the basic timeline?
So for prioritization for a brownfield site, so this would really come up if I was in a situation where we had a lot of sites, but very limited budget. So that's not the case now. I mean, it's great that we have the ability to fund those sites that we have right now active in our program. But if we were to come into that scenario, so we would look at the site location. Is the site in a populated area, an environmentally sensitive area? Like if there's surface water, site ownership, is it owned by a local government? What is the tax status of a site? So when we're looking at that, what is the anticipated increase in appraised value following cleanup? What are the contamination concerns? So what's the extent and levels of contamination? Leveraging, are there other funding sources available that we can kind of bring together into our pot to be able to maximize our assessment and remediation? And then what's the redevelopment plan? Is there particular timing that we need to consider? Number of jobs and green space created? So those are kind of be the prioritization. Now, when we're talking about the process, so the process would start really from an application. Our application is free. It can be located and downloaded in PDF format from our Railroad Commission Brownfields Response Program website. Wonderfully, it is available in English and Spanish, as well as our FAQ documents. So we want to reach our Spanish-speaking community members. So we'd start with the application, which is free. I do want to tell people the most important thing, if you're thinking about coming into our program, is do not acquire the property until you speak with us first. So we want to establish that there is no liability for, like, the potential applicant is not responsible for the contamination. So we have to do that through what is referred to as a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, or Phase 1 ESA. So that is also free that we will provide. So it starts with the application. They fill it out, provide it to me. I will kind of ask some general questions. Number one, have you acquired the property? If they have, unfortunately, we have to say no to the acceptance into the program. If they haven't, then we will conduct the Phase 1. We'll work with the applicant, the landowner, to be able to gain access onto the property, conduct the Phase 1, do basically a historical review of our records of the property to determine indeed is this site contaminated by oil and gas waste, because like I said, follows within the purview of Railroad Commission jurisdictional oversight. Then we say, yay, it's fine, it's great, you're accepted into the program. You'll get a wonderful acceptance letter with a big congratulations exclamation point. Then we'll kind of start the process of setting and planning assessment work. So we want to know what contaminants are on the property specifically, what is the spatial extent of contamination, where is it located, sources, all of that stuff. So once we go through a milieu of assessment activity, then we will develop a remedial action plan, or what we like to refer to as a RAP. Once that's finalized, the EPA is involved in this in terms of just kind of knowing how we're progressing through the program with the site. Then we'll proceed to cleanup. Once cleanup is done, we will then move forward with confirmation sampling. So basically, we want to get those samples of the soil and groundwater to indeed confirm that we have removed that contamination and that property is now safe. Then I issue what's called a certificate of completion, or COC. And so that will basically kind of be the golden ticket that says the Railroad Commission has officially said that this site is ready to be redeveloped. We do not do the redevelopment. We only do assess and remediation. That's where we stop. So the timeline can vary by site. We have sites that are pretty small. We've had sites that are very large. So it kind of depends on what contaminants, the scale of contamination, and how large the site is.
But we're not out there building the baseball field or setting up the gazebo and all of that stuff. We're there remediating and making sure that it is clean and prepared for a community or owner, whoever, to then come in and do those things.
We don't just leave our applicants saying, okay, we're done, we wash our hands of you. No, we have brownfield partners that we can refer our applicants to assist with that redevelopment.
But this is, like I heard you say also, but there's a plan to all of this. It's not very much, we just leave it as a grassy field and like, well, best of luck. There's like a whole process, and it sounds like there's even communication, you said, with EPA. So like folks know going into this that this industrial site will be transformed into potentially this.
Correct. Yes. So part of the application requires is a redevelopment plan. So this is kind of just a very brief synopsis of what that particular applicant, it could be a nonprofit or a local government entity, that says, hey, we plan to turn this site into a nature preserve or an outdoor sports complex. And this is really an important part because we want to ensure that these federal dollars, these brownfield grant dollars, are being utilized for their intended purpose, which is to revitalize communities.
And I know this isn't on our question list, but y'all just recently had a big event down in San Antonio just for some education and all of that, because I know we were putting out notifications to invite folks. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the outreach work that y'all do to help inform these communities? Because I would imagine it goes into urban, rural, all sorts of different communities across the state.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. This is actually one of the most exciting things about our outreach initiatives. So kind of to just start is one of the biggest challenges with the Brownfields Response Program has been the outreach. Before it was a one-person team, essentially, but that has really changed, especially in 2021 when the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was signed into law in November of that year. So what this did was it expanded federal brownfield grant dollars to support a full-time outreach specialist and all of the outreach work that she does. So that means going to more conferences. That means putting on workshops, which I'll go into a little bit later. And that just also means increasing our time in front of the community and saying, hey, we want to tell you about this great program that the commission supports and how you can be a part of that. So going into the first ever, we launched it this year, our first ever Railroad Commission of Texas Brownfields Response Program Workshop Series. So we are working with our Texas Regional Councils to host these workshops. Our first one that we did was in May of this year, and we worked with the Alamo Area Council of Governments in San Antonio to host a workshop. We have one coming up in August. That's going to be hosted by the Permian Basin Regional Planning Commission. And then in October, we're going to be going down to the Rio Grande Valley in Weslaco, where we'll be working with the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council to host that workshop. Like all wonderful things, they're never really accomplished alone. We do have our wonderful brownfield partners. And so that would include our Kansas State University Technical Assistance to Brownfield staff, so KSU TAB. They work with EPA Region 6, so they kind of offer that really big umbrella what is a brownfield? What does a brownfield entail? The kind of big general overview. We then also have at our workshops the TCEQ Brownfields program. A lot of people don't know that they also have one. Now, their jurisdiction is different than ours. That's how we it's very Railroad Commission forward, but we want to be able to provide our communities with a very broad understanding of the whole Brownfields program, how it can be helpful to them.
Now, with all of that, it sounds like there's a lot to a layman who does not know a lot about this. It seems like there's a lot of technical pieces. Are there some misconceptions when you're going out to these communities about like the cost, the complexity, like how all of this works? It seems like it's a lot, but at the same time, it said like, well, there's an application, you apply, and just kind of goes from there. What are some of the more common questions y'all get as far as like, I don't understand, what do I need to do?
Cost is probably the biggest concern. I think it's really difficult for people to conceptualize that it really is free. So then they look at the application and say, well, it looks like here you need a survey or a phase 1 ESA, as I'd mentioned before. That's going to cost me money. well, then we can just say, well, no, actually, we will provide that as part of assessing and remediating the site and closing the site with the commission. So it is indeed free. So cost is a big one. Timeline is also one. So for example, we have an active site that is within an independent school district. And so their timeline is really more important than the cost, even though the commission is funding through the Brownfields response program, through the BRP. So kind of keeping the expectations of, it's a process. It's developing the assessment plan, those goals, keeping the EPA informed, getting their final approval, then getting our contractors out there onto the site, getting the final report, getting the next recommendations for assessment, and then the whole process starts all over again. So certainly those come up, time and cost. But I'm here and always available. Our outreach specialist is always available to have those meetings and have those discussions to just better inform our communities.
Yeah, because I know y'all have a ton of really great resources on the website. If folks have questions, they can go to all of that and they can do all those types of initial research. But as always, it's good to know that there's folks on the other end who will pick up. So what's been a success story to you that's really stuck with you from some of these cleanups? I know Nick had his there. What's another one that really jumps out, or a couple little like, hey, I've seen this and it was like, oh, wow, we're making an impact for Texans?
I love this question because we recently closed on a site, officially closed on a site that's 106 acres, and it was contaminated. Well, it had barium and chloride impacted soil and groundwater. So after we remediated, we were able to confirm that, it gets a clean bill of health. So on the site, there were several plugged and abandoned oil and gas wells on the property. Like I said, contaminated soil and groundwater. Currently, redevelopment is underway. So this site will be transformed into a massive outdoor sports complex. It's going to include 12 pickleball courts, 5 softball fields, 4 baseball fields, batting practice cages, 2 tennis courts, 2 soccer fields. There will also be public facilities and nature trails for people to enjoy the outdoors, picnic areas. This project is expected to take approximately 2 years, and it will cost approximately $45 million, which will be paid through the city's park dedication fees and tax revenue. I think about the impact to this community and what it's going to have, and people just to have more time outdoors, spend more time with their families. And I'm really glad that I can be a part of that and the commission can be a part of that progress.
Thank you for the work that y'all do. And thank you so much for joining us today.
I am very excited. Thank you. And I'm always available for questions.
Absolutely. I know we mentioned it, site remediation. We have talked about that before on a previous episode. So if I wanted to go back and listen to that one, Nick, where could I find that?
Well, you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Alexa, Audible. We have all our episodes there. And make sure you subscribe when you do follow along so you get the notifications when we get these new episodes out. You can see that there was one released. You can, hey, here's what it is. That's kind of cool. I'm going to listen to it when I go to work this morning or something, because we release them very early in the morning. So they're ready for you. You can get up and get going, get the kids to school, or, get off to work in the morning. You can also, you talk about no cost. It's no cost to you to follow along on social media as well. We are on X at TXRRC. LinkedIn, Facebook, look for Railroad Commission of Texas, at Railroad Commission of Texas on Instagram, and then on YouTube as well, Railroad Commission of Texas, where it was several years ago, but you can dig around and find a video that we did of the Artist Boat Preserve, which is pretty cool. You can check that out on our YouTube page.
And as always, we've plugged it like several times already this episode. rrc.texas.gov has all of our resources, forms, applications, data sets, maps, charts, FAQs, anything you need. Railroad Commission, whether we're talking Brownfields or anything else that we do, that is all on our website. This is Texas Energy on Track, the official podcast of the Railroad Commission of Texas, and we'll talk to y'all soon.